You can get almost everything about hydrangea care wrong and recover. Water it badly this week, fix it next week. Feed it wrong this month, correct it next. Prune it at the wrong time and lose a season of flowers, but the plant forgives you and comes back the year after. Planting is the exception. Planting is the one thing you do to a hydrangea that you cannot quietly undo later, and that is why the mistakes made in that first hour are the ones you actually end up regretting. Here is what makes them different. The mistakes in this video do not show up as a dead plant the next morning. They show up as a plant that never quite works for years, and by the time you understand what went wrong, fixing it means digging the whole thing up and starting over, which almost nobody does. So you live with it instead. A hydrangea that sulks or scorches every summer, or slowly declines, or crowds its neighbors into a mildewy mess, all because of a decision made in an hour that felt routine at the time. That is the specific shape of the regret, not a dramatic failure. A slow, quiet underperformance you built in on day one and then cannot easily get out of. So this video is the planting mistakes that come back to haunt you and how to avoid every one of them. And here is the good news underneath all of it. They are completely free to avoid. Not one of them is about buying a better plant or a special product. Every single one is just knowing what to do in that first hour, and the knowing costs nothing. The very first mistake happens before you have picked up a shovel. It happens in the shop, at the moment you choose the plant, and it is the one that quietly sets up half the others. I am also going to give you the mistake almost nobody warns you about, the one that looks completely fine for the first 2 years and only turns into a regret in year 3, when it is hardest to fix. That one catches even careful gardeners, because at planting time, it looks like you are doing everything right. But first, you have to understand why this 1 hour outweighs everything else you will ever do for this plant, because that is what makes these mistakes worth taking seriously. Here is why this 1 hour matters more than everything else combined. A hydrangea lives its entire life inside the decisions you made the day you planted it. The spot you chose, how deep you set it, what went into the hole, the state of the roots when they went in, the room you left it to grow, all of it gets locked in place the moment you firm the soil down. The plant then has to live inside those decisions for years, and most of them cannot be changed afterward without digging the whole thing back up and starting again, which sets it back a year or more, and which, realistically, nobody does. So planting is not one step among many. It is the foundation the entire plant sits on. And a plant on a bad foundation does not fail dramatically. It just underperforms, quietly, for its whole life, while the gardener fusses over water and feed and pruning, trying to fix from above a problem that was built in from below. That is the frustration so many people have with hydrangeas, and they never trace it back to the hour that caused it. There is a genuinely encouraging side to this, though. Because these mistakes are all built in at planting, they are all avoidable at planting, and avoiding them is free. It costs nothing to choose the right spot, nothing to set the plant at the right depth, nothing to leave the right amount of room. This is the cheapest, highest value hour you will ever spend on this plant, and getting it right removes most of the ways a hydrangea disappoints people before the plant has even started growing. So take the hour seriously, because you only get it once. And do me a favor before we start. Drop a comment telling me whether you are planting in the ground or in a container, because a couple of these mistakes change depending on which one you are doing. Now, the first mistake, and you make it before you own a shovel, standing in the shop with the plant in your hands. The first mistake, buying the plant before you know which hydrangea it actually is. It happens like this. You see a gorgeous hydrangea in the garden center, in full bloom, and you fall for it. You buy it on the spot. You bring it home, look around for an empty space, and put it wherever there is room. The plant picked its own spot by being pretty in the shop. That is backwards, and it quietly sets up half the other mistakes in this video, because there is no single set of things a hydrangea wants. There are 6 different types, and they want genuinely different conditions from the ground you are about to put them in. So the spot that is perfect for the one you bought depends entirely on which one you bought, and you decided that at random, based on which was flowering hardest on the day. The biggest thing that varies is sunlight, and getting it wrong is a permanent problem. Panicle hydrangeas, the cone-flowered ones, and smooth hydrangeas, the Annabelle snowball type, will take a lot of sun and actually need a good amount to flower well. Big leaf mopheads and oak leaf hydrangeas are the opposite, scorching in hot afternoon sun and wanting shade in the warmer part of the day. Plant a big leaf in the blazing spot a panicle would have loved, and you have signed it up for a lifetime of scorched leaves and afternoon wilt. Size varies just as much, and that regret comes later. Some types stay compact, others become enormous. Buy without checking, and you either crowd a giant into a tiny space or plant something that stays small where you wanted a big statement. The tag tells you, if you look before you buy. And the color question lives here too, which is where hearts get broken, because only 2 of the 6 types can change color at all, and no amount of anything shifts the other 4. So the fix is to reverse the order. Decide what you need first, a plant for shade or sun, for a big space or a small one, and then choose a type that fits, and then buy a healthy specimen of that type. Do not buy a plant, and then hunt for somewhere to put it. The second mistake follows straight from the first, and it is about the one thing on a site you can never change. The second mistake: planting it where the light is wrong, because light is the one thing about a spot you can never change. You can improve almost anything about a planting site after the fact. Poor soil can be built up over time. Dry ground can be watered. You can add mulch, add shelter, add nutrients. The sun is the exception. Where the light falls on that spot is fixed forever, so if you get the light wrong, the only remedy is to dig the plant up and move it, which is exactly the kind of do-over these mistakes are about avoiding. The first mistake told you the types want different amounts of sun. This is about the spot that actually solves it for almost everyone, and it is worth knowing because it is so simple. The east side of the house. Morning sun, afternoon shade. That single exposure suits very nearly every hydrangea because the morning sun is gentle and gives the plant the light it needs, while the building shades it from the fierce afternoon sun that does the damage. If you are unsure where to put a hydrangea, an east-facing spot is the safe answer. 2 ways people get it wrong, and each carries its own regret. Too much sun, especially hot afternoon sun in a warm climate, and above all, on a big leaf or oak leaf. The leaves scorch and crisp at the edges. The flowers brown and cook mid-season instead of aging gracefully. And the plant wilts flat every single afternoon, because its shallow roots cannot pull water fast enough to replace what those blazing leaves lose. People see that daily wilt, assume the plant is thirsty, and pour on more water, when the real problem is that the plant is simply in the wrong place. Too much shade brings the opposite disappointment. Deep shade, under a dense tree or against a sunless north wall, gives you a lush, healthy, leafy plant with very few flowers, weaker autumn color, and more mildew, because the air stays damp and still. The rough minimum for most hydrangeas is about 4 hours of direct light. Below that, you are growing a shrub for its foliage and little else. Now, a quick word, because the first 2 mistakes both come back to the same thing, and it is the reason this channel exists. Quick one, right here, because the first 2 mistakes both trace back to the same gap, and it is the single most useful thing to close before you plant anything. You cannot pick the right spot for a hydrangea until you know which of the 6 it is, and if you cannot tell them apart, you are guessing on the light, the size, the room to leave, all of it, at the exact moment those choices get locked in for good. That is the whole story with this plant. A hydrangea is not one thing. It is 6 different types wearing one name, and they want different light, grow to different sizes, are pruned at different times, and only 2 of them can change color at all. So a careful person does one sensible thing to all of them, and gets a different wrong result on each, and walks away convinced hydrangeas are difficult. They are not difficult. They are unlabeled. So I put the honest version in one place. It is called the Hydrangea Mastery Guide, and it does exactly what you need before you dig a hole. It tells you what you are actually holding. It sorts all 6 types in about 90 seconds. It gives you the prune by type calendar, so you never cut off a season of flowers by mistake. It explains the real reason the color changes, which is not the pH, whatever you were told. And it walks through the 5 myths that cost people an entire season. 29 pages, $27, instant PDF, 7-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the description at waltgreer.com. It ends the way this channel always does, with the part nobody selling you a miracle will admit. 4 of the 6 types cannot change color no matter what you pour on the soil. Fertilizer will never fix a hydrangea that will not bloom. A guide that only tells you what to do is only half a guide. Now, the third mistake, and it is the physical one that quietly kills more newly planted hydrangeas than any other. The third mistake, planting it too deep. This is the physical error that quietly kills more newly planted hydrangeas than any other, and it comes from an instinct that feels completely sensible. The instinct is that deep means secure. You are tucking the plant in firmly, giving it a stable footing, settling it well into the ground. So people dig a nice deep hole and set the plant down low, with soil coming up around the base of the stems. That starts a slow rot. The critical part of a hydrangea is the crown, the point where the stems meet the roots, right at the base of the plant. The crown is not built to be buried. It needs to sit at the soil surface, in contact with air. Pile soil over it, and you trap constant moisture against tissue that cannot handle it, and that tissue begins to rot. Crown rot and stem rot set in, the plant loses vigor, and it declines. And here is the cruel part that makes it a regret rather than a quick lesson. It usually does not die outright. It just sits there, year after year, weak and stunted and never thriving, while you cannot work out what is wrong with it. The rule is simple and exact. The top of the root ball should sit level with the surrounding soil, or even half an inch above it, never below. When the plant is set in the hole, the top of that root ball wants to be right at grade or standing slightly proud, like a shoulder just breaking the surface of the ground. There is a specific trap that causes this, and knowing it is how you avoid it. Nursery plants are very often potted deep in their containers, with the true crown sitting well below the rim of the pot. So if you dig a hole the depth of the pot and drop the whole root ball in to match, you have buried the crown without realizing it. Do not match the pot. Find the actual crown, the point where the stems flare out from the roots, and set the plant so that flare sits at the surface. If that leaves the root ball standing a little proud, that is correct. A simple check keeps you honest. Lay a stick or the handle of your shovel flat across the top of the hole and use it as a level line to see exactly where the top of the root ball sits against the surrounding ground. Adjust the soil underneath until it is right before you backfill. And remember what is at stake, because it is the whole reason to be careful. A hydrangea cannot be rescued from root rot once it has reached the crown. There is no fixing this one later. You get it right now, or you lose the plant slowly. The fourth mistake is the one the big growers say kills the most new hydrangeas of all, and it is the one that feels the most generous. The fourth mistake: digging a small hole and filling it back in with lovely, rich soil. This is the one the big growers say kills more newly planted hydrangeas than anything else, and it feels like pure generosity. Here is what almost everybody does, with the best intentions in the world. You dig a hole roughly the size of the pot. You look at the plain, ordinary, maybe clayish soil that came out of it, and you think your new plant deserves better than that. So you fill the hole back in with the good stuff instead. Bagged compost, potting mix, peat, rich dark topsoil, a soft, luxurious bed for the plant to grow into. You have just built it a bathtub. The physics is simple once you see it. That fluffy, rich amended soil holds a great deal of water because it has large spaces between its particles. The natural soil around it, especially clay, holds far less and drains far more slowly. So when water moves down through the ground and reaches your hole, it hits the boundary between the two and stops, because water does not move easily from loose material into dense material. It pools there, in the soft soil, right around the roots, exactly like water sitting in a bathtub with the plug in. A hydrangea sitting in a tub of waterlogged soil rots at the roots, which brings back the rule from the last mistake, the one with no mercy. Once root rot reaches the crown, the plant cannot be saved. The people at Proven Winners, who grow these by the million, say improper soil amending like this is the #1 reason they see new plants struggle and die, and they name panicle hydrangeas in particular. I have to be straight with you here, because the experts genuinely do not fully agree on this, and you deserve to know that. Some horticulturists, including Linda Chalker Scott and the great hydrangea authority Michael Durr, say do not amend the planting hole at all, just backfill with the same native soil that came out of it. Others are comfortable with a modest amount of compost, around 20 to 30%, worked in. That part is a real, open debate. What every side of it agrees on is the fix. Do not dig a small, rich hole. If you want to improve the soil, improve a wide area, not a deep pocket. Dig your hole only as deep as the root ball, but 2 to 3 times as wide, and if you amend at all, work the compost through that whole broad area you loosened, so there is no sharp boundary for water to pool against and no tub for it to fill. The roots then grow outward through gradually improving soil instead of drowning in a rich well. So the honest version is short, wide, not deep. Native soil in the hole, or gently amended over a broad area, never a small pit of fluffy compost dropped into heavy ground. The 5th mistake is the one hiding inside the root ball, the part you can see perfectly well and still get wrong. The 5th mistake: dropping the plant into the hole with its roots still wound in a tight ball, exactly as they came out of the pot. This is the last thing that happens before you backfill, and it is the easiest to skip because the plant looks completely fine. You slide it out of the nursery pot. The root ball holds its shape perfectly, a neat firm cylinder, and you set that straight into the hole. Looks done. The trouble is what those roots do next. A plant that has been in its pot for a while becomes root-bound, the roots circling round and round the inside of the container because they hit the plastic wall and had nowhere else to go. Plant that root ball as it is, and the roots do not suddenly understand they are free. They keep doing what they learned. They keep circling in the same tight spiral around the shape of a pot that is no longer there. So the plant never roots out into the surrounding soil. It sits in the ground as though still in its container, on a root system that tightens on itself as it thickens, sometimes girdling and killing the plant years later. And in the meantime, it cannot take up water and nutrients properly because the roots are locked in a knot. That is another regret that surfaces long after planting, with no obvious cause. The fix takes about 30 seconds. Before the plant goes in the hole, look at the root ball. If you see roots circling the outside, or a dense matted spiral at the bottom, break it up. Tease the roots loose with your fingers, and if it is really tight and woody, take a knife or your spade and score straight down the sides in a few places, cutting through that outer layer of circling roots. It feels brutal, and it is exactly right. Cutting those roots is what triggers fresh new roots to push outward into the soil instead of continuing the circle. If you are planting in a container rather than the ground, the same root check applies, and 2 other things decide everything. Use a pot with real drainage holes, and use an actual potting mix rather than garden soil, which compacts to concrete in a container. The depth rule, the crown at the surface, the light, all stay exactly the same as in the ground. The 6th mistake is the sneakiest of all, because at planting time it looks like you did everything right, and the regret does not arrive for 2 or 3 years. The sixth mistake: planting them too close together and too close to the house. This is the sneakiest regret on the list, because at planting time, it looks like you did everything right, and the problem does not surface for 2 or 3 years. Here is how it happens, and why careful people fall for it. You buy your hydrangeas as small nursery plants, little things in 1 or 2 gallon pots, and you arrange them in the bed by how they look right now. Small plants, so you set them close, maybe a couple of feet apart, because spaced out at their planting size they look sparse and lonely, and the bed looks bare. Tucking them in close makes an instantly full, lush planting. It looks great the day you finish. Those plants are not staying that size. A hydrangea you planted as a small shrub can grow to 5, 6, 8 feet across depending on the type, and the bed that looked perfectly full at planting becomes a crowded thicket by year 3, with the plants growing into each other, competing for light and water and root space, and losing their natural shape as they jostle. And crowding brings a specific problem beyond the crush, which is disease. When plants grow into each other, air stops moving through them. The foliage stays damp, humidity gets trapped in the tangle, and you have built the perfect conditions for powdery mildew and leaf spot, the fungal problems hydrangeas are already prone to. A well-spaced hydrangea with air moving around it mostly avoids these. A crowded one gets them every year. The regret is that by the time it is obvious, it is genuinely hard to fix. You cannot nudge established hydrangeas apart. Fixing an overcrowded planting means digging up mature plants and moving them, which sets them back badly, and which, again, almost nobody actually does. So people live with the thicket instead. The fix costs nothing and requires only faith at planting time. Look up the mature width of your specific type, the number on the tag, and space the plants that full distance apart, center to center, even though it looks too far apart on the day. For many hydrangeas, that means 3 to 6 feet or more between plants. Give them the same clearance from the house and from paths, so a big mature shrub is not swallowing your walkway or pressing against the wall. Plant for the plant it becomes, not the plant in the pot. Let me pull the whole thing together. Before we finish, send this to one person you know who is about to plant a hydrangea this weekend. Just the link. This is the 1 hour where 5 minutes of knowing saves them years of a plant that never quite works, and once it is in the ground wrong, the easy window has closed. Here is the whole thing in one idea. A hydrangea lives its entire life inside the hour you planted it. Water and pruning you can fix later. The spot, the depth, the ground, and the room you left it cannot be, and that is exactly why these are the mistakes people regret, quietly, for years. So know which of the 6 types it is before you buy it, because the right spot, the right size, the right everything depends on that, and a panicle and a big leaf want opposite conditions. Put it where the light is. Right, because you can change everything about a site except the sun. Morning sun and afternoon shade, the east side of the house, suits nearly every hydrangea there is. Plant it at the right depth, crown at the surface or a touch above, never buried, because a buried crown rots slowly and cannot be saved once it goes. Do not dig a small hole and fill it with rich soil, because that builds a bathtub that drowns the roots. Wide, not deep, and native soil or a gently amended broad area. Break up the root ball before it goes in, so the roots push out into the ground instead of strangling themselves in the circle they learned in the pot. And leave them real room, spaced at their mature width, even though it looks too far apart on the day, because the thicket that crowding creates in year 3 is one of the hardest regrets of all to undo. Get those right in that 1 hour, and you have removed most of the ways this plant can disappoint you before it has even started. That is the whole thing. A thriving hydrangea is not mainly about what you do for it over the years. It is about what you did for it on the first day. Subscribe and hit the bell and stick around. We do this the honest way here in the Forgotten Knowledge Library, which means telling you when the experts disagree and telling you which mistakes you can fix and which ones you truly cannot. It is free, and it always will be. And drop a comment telling me which of these you have made before, because I have made at least 2 of them myself, and the plant never told me until it was too late to fix. Next time, another thing the first hour decides that the next 10 years cannot undo. I will see you in the next one.